Hi, how you going? Today I'm gonna be ranking every FromSoftware game from worst to best and explain why I like some of the games better than the others. Obviously this is my subjective opinion and I'm ranking them based on my overall enjoyment. Also I understand that no matter how one ranks like anything at all, somebody will get upset. Well, don't be. Just use the comment section to let everyone know how you would have ranked them. Let's go. And coming in at number 8, it's Demon's Souls. Doesn't come as a surprise, right? Well, to be fair, I've only played the original game, not the remake, and not on PS3. I played it on PC using the RPCS3 emulator that actually allows you to run the game at a stable 60 FPS. The reason why Demon's Souls is my least favorite game on this list is probably because I played it after a whole bunch of other FromSoftware titles and it literally felt like proto Dark Souls to me. Obviously, I'm not saying Demon's Souls is a bad game or a bad FromSoftware game for that matter, but the things I love about Soulsborne games, I didn't enjoy much in Demon's Souls. Just to name a few examples, a lot of boss fights had some kind of a gimmick puzzle to them, and I didn't really like Nexus that much as a hub area. Also, the game was quite short. It took me 16 to 17 hours to finish it. I don't know if my opinion will change once I try the remake, but as far as I know, they kept all the in-game core mechanics and features intact, only improving on the visuals, and I don't know, the graphics, or should I say graphical fidelity, the quality, was never a big deal to me, not just in Soulsborne games, but games in general, and my number 1 on this list stands as a proof. And the next one is a bit controversial. Get your Rotten Tomatoes ready. It's a game I have played the most, but only finished once, and it's Elden Ring. I know a lot of people will disagree with this, yeah? A FromSoftware games ranked from worst to best video where Elden Ring is not only among the worst, but also comes before Dark Souls 2. Fuck this Melvo dude. But that's how it is for me. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Elden Ring. It's a magical experience, and I honestly think that FromSoftware did the impossible by showing us that an open world game doesn't have to have all the, rubbish features like endless meaningless question marks on the map or like bring me 10 bare arses side quests, outposts. To be a fantastic open world experience with a lot of things to do. Build variety, replayability is just through the roof in Elden Ring. It's incredibly fun to explore the open world. Legacy dungeons are absolutely sick. It's lore rich. There's a dedicated jump button. Don't laugh, it's a big deal. And all these good things considered, the game should be at least in top 3 of this video, but it's not. And here's why. The biggest gripe I personally have with Elden Ring, and it's a big one for me, and I heard a lot of people mentioning that too. You upgrade your preferred spirit ashes, most of the mini bosses become a cakewalk. You try to fight them slightly under-leveled, the main bosses become too challenging. It was just really hard for me to find this perfect balance where everything is, challenging enough. Not easy, but not borderline impossible. And that's how I felt most of the time playing Elden Ring. It was either too easy or borderline impossible. And I know it's probably on me, like this balance I'm talking about is definitely in there. It can be found, but I just couldn't find it. I reckon it's because of the open world aspects of the game. You can go pretty much wherever you want from the get-go. There's no strict structure to how you need to progress. But bottom line is, Elden Ring is a fantastic game. It's a fantastic open world game, and it's a fantastic Soulsborne game, but it's one of my least favorite on this particular list. And before we continue, let me just steal 10 seconds of your time and ask you to subscribe to the channel. I upload Soulsborne/Souls-like related content weekly, such as game reviews, update reviews. I also stream here on YouTube, currently doing my first Soul Level 1 run. Likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated too. Thank you very much. Back to the video now. And at number 6, I have a Dark Souls game that I played last. I came in wounded by Dark Souls 2, expecting to be miraculously healed, and I'm talking about Dark Souls 3. Another unpopular opinion, yeah? Let me start with what I think is amazing about Dark Souls 3. First of all, obviously it looks way better than its predecessors. I remember being captivated and just hypnotized by cape animations. They just, I don't know, they look so yummy. I also think that Dark Souls 3 bosses are the best in the series, both mechanics-wise and visually. They're just a pleasure to fight. Almost all of them. For example, the Nameless King is one of my most favorite bosses of all time in video games, period. Everything about it is beautiful. The location, the build-up, the lore, the arena, the challenge it provides, the soundtrack. Another one of the best for me is the Abyss Watchers, of course. The music there just fits so perfectly and tugs your heartstrings. I think it takes incredible talent to write something like that and make it so properly suitable. And this brings us to another thing that Dark Souls 3 does better than the other Souls games. Its OST is the best in the series in my opinion. Like the Nameless King's second phase, this part, it just gives me goosebumps even now as of recording this video. So why is Dark Souls 3 number 6 on the list with 8 positions? One of the main reasons I love Soulsborne games is the exploration aspect, and I just wasn't that excited when playing Dark Souls 3, that's all. And don't get me wrong, it's still miles ahead of most non-FromSoft games. In my opinion, level design in Dark Souls 3 is not all that great. For example, the first memorable location for me was Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, and everything that came before was just not that exciting to explore. It wasn't bad or anything, just kind of boring. And also, the game lets you experiment with the builds all you want to get that meta, but you can also get the Irithyll straight sword early on and just R1 your way to victory. Of course, I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's pretty easy to R1 spam your way through Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 first playthrough high was incredible, but nowadays, I only come back to it because of the bosses. And next up at number 6, I have the game that maybe shouldn't even be here. It's Armored Core 6. I know it's not a Soulsborne game, but it's a FromSoftware game. I also know that it shouldn't be compared to other Soulsbornes because obviously it's a completely different game. But I want to mention it here anyway. You can treat this chapter of the video as a little lyrical digression. There's nothing much to say, so I'll keep it short. Armored Core 6 was my first AC game, and I was just blown away by it. The moment I got to control my first mech, I was so impressed by how fluid the controls are, and everything else in the game is just top-notch too. The voice acting, the missions, the mech building, the trademark FromSoftware difficulty at times, like this first Helicopter boss, for example. If there are people watching this who got turned away by the first boss, give Armored Core 6 another go. It gets better, I promise. Another thing worth mentioning is the story. In my Armored Core 6 review, I initially said that the story was not the game's strongest suit, and boy, I was wrong. To get the full picture, you have to finish the game a few times, and I'll just say that I was beyond impressed. Such an emotional journey. And at number 4, I have the game that most of my FromSoftware aficionado friends, and probably some of you too, would put where number 1 is. And it's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro is the game that took me the longest to get used to, but once the combat finally clicked, it quickly turned into one of the most addictive games I've ever played. I think the reason why it took me some time to get into it was that I approached it the way most of the Sekiro first-timers do. I played it as if it was a Souls game. Somebody once said that Sekiro is one of those games that are hardest to learn and easiest to master, and I completely agree with that. Again, once the combat finally clicks with you, it's really hard to put the game down, and Gauntlets of Strength is a very nice addition to the base game that pumps up replayability. It was really hard for me to have Sekiro at number 4 because I genuinely think it has the best combat video games have to offer, but my top 3 games just superseded it. It's also kind of upsetting that it did not get any story DLCs, and don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot to do in the base game, but having a story DLC or a PvP update for Sekiro would have been sick. And another less meaningful reason why Sekiro is where it is on my list is because I'm just not a big fan of the setting. And at number 3, I have the game that a lot of people begin such videos with. It's Dark Souls 2. I have so much to say about Dark Souls 2. It was my second Souls game, and with the insane high I experienced after completing Dark Souls Remastered, I picked it up instantly to have a quick follow-up fix. And oh boy, was I disappointed. Disappointed is not even the right word here. I was furious, I was frustrated and upset. My first playthrough was a complete mess. I didn't like it at all, and I was so happy to finally beat Nashandra and move on to Dark Souls 3 I heard so many great things about. A year or so later, I decided to give it another go, only this time try Scholar of the First Sin, that a lot of people call the definitive edition with improved graphics, different enemy placement, item placement, etc. And you know, something changed. I honestly don't know if it was because of the Scholar of the First Sin, but 5 minutes after booting up the game, I felt at home. It's really hard to describe this feeling other than Stockholm Syndrome, but I don't really think it's the case. I wasn't as mad or frustrated playing through Dark Souls 2 again. I loved it. And I'm not turning a blind eye to some of the terrible design choices, like tying your iframes to a stat was a stupid decision, or gang squads to artificially higher the difficulty. But at the same time, Dark Souls 2 has some of the most unique mechanics I wish were in other FromSoftware Soulsborne games. I'm talking about Branches of Yore, Faris's Lockstones, a torch mechanic, bonfire aesthetic, probably missed some, but you got the point. Also, Majula is the best hub area I've ever seen in video games, enough said. I know that it's an incredibly biased opinion because Dark Souls 2 has a special place in my heart and I just love it deeply, but surprisingly enough, I know for a fact that I'm not the only one who'd pick Dark Souls 2 over Dark Souls 3 any time of day. It's a fantastic, weird game I always look forward to playing again. By the way, one of the reasons why I decided to give it another go back then was when a person I'm honored to call a friend, Pledmax, finally finished his Dark Souls 2 no-hit run. It just inspired me on so many levels, and I'm happy that I came back to it because it changed my opinion on the game drastically. And by the way, if you want to check out Max, I strongly recommend watching his fantastic video essay titled simply Studio Ghibli vs. FromSoftware, The Abundance of Aesthetic Parallels. The link will be in the description. Okay. We have 2 more games left, and before we proceed, I'd like to say that it was incredibly tough for me to decide which one takes the gold, but here we go. And I'll keep it short because I think my opinion on Bloodborne matches with opinions of 99% of the people in the universe. It's arguably the most visually unique looking game, the setting is balls to the wall fantastic, it's incredibly atmospheric, and it perfectly mixes Souls gameplay with this dark Victorian shit and Lovecraftian eldritch horror. I love almost everything about Bloodborne. Trick weapons are super fun to use, hand cannons and pistols as parry weapons are a nice touch. I love the rally mechanic that forces you to be as aggressive as possible. I even love chalice dungeons that most people simply ignore. Probably the only reason why Bloodborne is not my number 1 as of recording this video is because it's only available on PlayStation consoles and it's 30 FPS locked. That's 2 reasons, but seriously, as soon as the game hits Steam, I'm making another ranked video where I give Bloodborne its gold. I'll throw my $70 at them so fast and furious their heads will spin. Of course, we don't know if Bloodborne ever gets a remaster, but I believe and I hope. To mention Max again, I remember a story of them buying a PlayStation 4 solely to play Bloodborne and calling it Bloodborne Machine. I even have a little reference to that on my stream starting screen. And this is Babinski, by the way, my first Dark Souls 2 character. And I think it's pretty obvious by now what my number 1 is. It's Dark Souls Remastered. And again, just like everything else on this list, it's an incredibly biased opinion. Dark Souls 1 was my first ever Souls game, and simply put, it made me excited about video games and gaming again. The last time I was excited about a video game was when I finally got my hands on a Fallout 2 CD. I remember literally running home with it like a little goofball I was. Fallout 2 wasn't perfect, but it was what younguns call a vibe nowadays. It was a vibe. Dark Souls 2 was and still is a vibe to me. It's also not perfect, and it becomes harder and harder to play it now that we're getting more advanced games. And I'm not talking about the graphics, of course. It's so much slower than any other FromSoftware game. Not that it's a bad thing, but coming back to Dark Souls 1 after Elden Ring, and especially this new Lords of the Fallen game, was quite a challenge to me. It also has absolute stinker locations that I never look forward coming back to, but the interconnected map, all the charming NPCs you meet along the way, the stories they tell, give Dark Souls 1 the atmosphere that I think is still unmatched. It has magic to it, and I simply can't explain or describe it with words properly. I'm currently doing my first Soul Level 1 run of Dark Souls Remastered. For those who don't know what it is, it's a playthrough where you start as a pyromancer. A pyromancer starts as a level 1 character and finish the game without leveling up. If you want to stop by and have a chat, I have a link to a scheduled stream pinned in the comments. You can open it and click the notify me button, so if the time is right for you, join me there and let's hang out. I feel like I have a lot more to say about every single game on this list, but I don't want this video to be bloated, so this is where we're gonna end it. Like, subscribe, and share this video with friends. Let me know how your ranked list looks like in the comments, and thanks for watching. See ya.